Thanks for joining us on episode 1443 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Venchele Saint Dic. I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to recognize your growth is never a straight line is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend Scott Mader. My faith journey has definitely been a cornerstone of my identity and resilience, and it definitely influenced both my personal life and professional endeavors. I would say growing up in a Caribbean family, faith was not just a belief system, but it was a vibrant community that nurtured support, love, and mutual respect.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's podcast episode, I interview Venchele Saint Dic. I asked her to share how her faith journey and her life journey are connected. I also asked her to share with you how she's worked to discover her calling. And Venchele also talks with you about how she marries her work in public health and the work she does helping others discover how to write well. I've got a new book coming out called Inspired Living, Assembling the Puzzle of Your Call by Mastering Your Time, Your Talent, and Your Treasures. You can find out more about it and sign up for getting more information over at inspiredstewardship.com, Inspired Living. That's inspiredstewardship.com, Inspired Living. Venchele is the author of Journey to Redemption in Faith in the Amazon best-selling book, Passport to Self-Discovery, Volume 2. She is in a doctorate in public health leadership, and she is the founder of MESFAMI Care Incorporated. She has demonstrated leadership and innovation in public health equity, communications, public outreach, social inclusion, and diversity, among others. Her writing skills subjects on public health, resilience, communication skills, assertiveness, personal development, mindfulness, emotional intelligence, travel, community health, mental health, relationships, culture, race, customer service, and health systems. Her past writing stories have been included on the Good Men Project, the National Medical Association, Harness Magazine, and many other sites. Welcome to the show, Venchele.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. I look forward to talking to you and sharing a little bit about your journey with the listeners. I shared quite a bit in the intro about some of the things you've done and where you're working now, working on the writing coach and working to help others with writing, as well as doing some writing yourself. But would you talk a little bit more about kind of your journey and your background and what's kind of some of the unique things about your journey that have brought you to the point where you are today?
I think this is such a fascinating question because, again, I get asked that question all the time. But my journey really began living on the small island of Haiti. I was born in the States, but I grew up there. And I was surrounded by abject poverty, even though I didn't grow up in poverty myself. But it had a profound impact on me. And just the way that I show up in the world, the way I show up for others with empathy and from a heart-centered place. And then again, from moving from Haiti, coming to the States, trying to define my why, because originally I wanted to become a pediatrician. I wanted to work with children. And then when I went to college majoring as a pre-med, I realized that I may have been my mission was very clear in terms of improving population health. but the means, like in terms of becoming a pediatrician, would not allow me to do that. It would just be more case management work. And so that's how I switched to public health. And it's like the way that I can describe it is when you are on a path. I was on this path, and then I was met with an intersection, and I was given an opportunity to pivot or to continue. But if I had continued, I probably would have been miserable. And I think as soon as I switched to public health, life just opened up, doors opened, opportunities presented themselves. And so that's how I knew that I was on the right path. I was in the right major. And then things just blossomed from there. But again, besides my public health background, I'm also a writing coach or a writing brand strategist for my side business, Pathway Coach Writing. And that journey literally started, I would say, back in college. But at the time, I didn't see many people making writing or turning writing into a business. And so I didn't have the model. And I'm a firm believer, you can only model what you've been exposed to. And at the time, I had people asking me for content feedback. And then I realized, you know what? Maybe down the road, maybe this is something that I could look into, but I wasn't really serious about it at the time. But I continued to hone in on my craft. And that's how Pathway Coach Writing started, as like a referral type of program where people would refer folks to me and I would help them with their writing needs. And then finally, I think around 2019, right before the pandemic, that's when my friend told me, Venchele, you can't keep doing this as a referral. I think you need to build a website and really think seriously about turning this into a full-fledged business. And so that's how Pathway Coach Writing was born.
So let's talk a little bit about a couple of those things. So first off, let's back up a minute. And you mentioned you pivoted from pediatrician to public health. For anyone that's listening, I'm a firm believer in explaining what we're talking about. Public health, I think we've all heard those words, but from your point of view, what does it mean to be working in the public health realm?
That's a good question. For me, I think that when I chose to go into public health, it literally means to me to be of service for free. This is not the career you go to become a billionaire. This is the career you go into to help people fix their problems. And I know it sounds terrible because you have surgeons, they depend on someone getting into an accident in order, it's just that, but that's the way the world goes. So for me, I depend on people who have pervasive problems like homelessness, people who are just having a hard time from a day to get up from bed. And that's why I come into play, where I provide these frameworks, I provide these resources so that people can get better. So when you work in public health, you're in the business of improving people's lives, but specifically on the health aspect of things.
And how do you see that connected to what you started doing in the writing realm?
I think in order for me to really answer that question, I would have to share with everyone that I am the daughter of immigrants. And I definitely think that being an immigrant profoundly shaped my perspective and added depth to that calling. And because when I think about it, public health and writing, people wouldn't immediately, it's counterintuitive to try to put these two together. But then that's what my mission has been, trying to marry the two, because I do believe in the power of words. I do believe that words can what may be funny to me may be deaf to someone else. And that's why I'm just very careful in terms of how I show up and how I speak to people. And I think that it goes back to living in Haiti, coming to the States, helping my mother acclimate to a new culture. I think being an immigrant definitely has had its challenges, but it taught me about resilience and adaptability, qualities that are both essential in both my writing and public health endeavors. And I think also that this experience also fueled my passion for advocacy and social justice. which has inspired me to continue to work on behalf of communities that face barriers in terms of health and education. So I think that when I think about marrying public health and writing, it's really a story of finding my calling and about leveraging my background and experiences to address the needs that I saw or like in the world around me and to articulate those needs and solutions through my writing. That's how I think about it. But again, when we talk about calling, it's not like a summit that you reach and then it's okay, this is it. Like I've learned everything that I need to learn. It's an evolving process. And so I'm still in my journey. I'm still learning.
And one of the things that I like to talk about on the show is I think a lot of times we confuse calling with career, calling with an assignment is what I call it. And the calling is the drive behind it. The assignment is how is that calling playing out in the world? And that could be a hobby, that could be a career, that could be volunteer work, that could be whatever. You know, it may or may not be, quote, your day job. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It that passion, and it sounds like the passion that you have behind you of equity, of care, of empathy, of showing up for people in a way that's authentic. It plays out when you're doing the writing work, and it plays out when you're doing the public health work. And it probably would have played out as a pediatrician too. But as you realized, hey, wait a minute, the public health, there's more pieces in the right place if I go that route than if I go the pediatrician route.
Right.
So let me refine it as I go. So that makes sense.
And I think you bring up a good point, like making that distinction, because like when I'm talking about finding my calling, like I explored many intersections of my passions and skills. And sometimes I think for some people, it becomes like a mourning process of skills that they thought that they wanted to apply to the assignment, and realizing that whatever the assignment that you are given may not be aligned with the skill sets that you have. So you have to make a decision. Do I keep going or do I stop and reevaluate the situation? So I appreciate you sharing that.
Do I work to develop those skills, or do I pivot and go a different direction? And it's not that one of those is right and the other is wrong. You have to discern which one of these routes do I want to take, what moves me along. So would you share a little bit too? We like to talk about the intersection between our faith journey and our life journey. Would you share how, as you've gone through these different experiences, living overseas, living in the U.S., being surrounded by poverty, you mentioned, and back in Haiti, as you've gone through these different experiences, how has that affected your faith journey? And then how has that evolving faith journey affected your life journey?
Again, thank you for sharing that with me. My faith journey has definitely been a cornerstone of my identity and resilience. And it definitely influenced like both my personal life and professional endeavors. I would say growing up in a Caribbean family, faith was not just a belief system, but it was a vibrant community that nurtured like support, love, and mutual respect. And I think it instilled in me a sense of purpose and a commitment to service, which are integral to both my work, my writing, and my work in public health. And so I would say as I navigated the challenges of migrating, and I'm trying to find the word, adapting to a new environment, my faith provided a sense of continuity and strength. It definitely has been a source of comfort and guidance through life's uncertainties. And also, now that I think about it, a motivating force in my pursuit of equity and justice in public health. So if nothing else, my faith encouraged me to view every interaction, every single one of you who are on my path as an opportunity to serve and uplift, which is aligning like perfectly with my professional goals to advocate for and empower communities. So I think in practical terms, when we're talking about the intersectionality of my faith and my life, I think my faith taught me the importance of listening, compassion, and integrity, which are qualities that are essential, which are qualities that they're hard to develop because, again, given the situation, given the people, because some people will test you on the journey. And I know that for sure. For me, I feel like I've been tested and I continue to be tested even to this day, because sometimes you could be working with someone with a difficult client. And how do you show them compassion? How do you listen to them with love and continue to motivate them to approach their work with humility? And so that's how I do it in my line of work, both in public health and writing. I really try to strive for positive impact, whether I'm crafting a narrative or developing a community health initiative. I think if nothing else, my faith journey in my life at least continues to be a driving force as I seek to live out that calling and make a meaningful difference in the world.
So when you think back, you mentioned you're still on that journey of really fully discovering your calling. And by the way, I think all of us are. But
yeah,
you've also, it's been in the fairly recent past for you that you've started to figure out some things, like you said, of that intersection of, hey, this is the route I should go instead of that one. If you're talking to somebody right now who maybe is struggling at one of those intersections themselves, they've been on a route, now they're hearing some things or feeling some things or discovering some things that are making them open up to, maybe I should be going left, maybe I should be going right. I'm not sure yet. What advice would you have, or what tips would you have for somebody who's at one of those intersections right now?
I would say that if you find yourself at an intersection and you're starting to feel like what I like to call like this dissonance between your feelings, between the environment that you're working in, listen to that inner voice. Because I firmly believe that when we're talking about calling and you're working, you're living out your calling, there's a sort of balance. And the moment that you find imbalance, that's when you need to stop and start researching what are some of the things that you're good at. That was the first question I asked myself. Actually, even before I asked myself those questions, I was trying to figure out how public health and writing complemented each other. Because I think we've been trained as people, when we're talking about risk management, doing risk management work in our lives, to just focus on the negative, what's not working. I focused instead on what was working and how I could amplify those strengths. And then the moment that you start to think that way, the next question is, where can I utilize those strengths? And then go after, and when I say go after, go and research like those places, those spaces, and talk to people who are doing the work that you want to do. That's how I approached it. I know this is just one of millions of ideas and strategies of going about it, but that worked for me. And I think what it did in the process is it empowered me to do even more, to research more, to network more. And that comes with finding your calling. That comes with the package. Find out what works and amplify that instead of focusing on what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about the writing work that you do and pathways, what you do over there. For somebody that's listening that maybe has been struggling a little bit in this area, maybe they have some things that they feel like they want to put together. Writing has been a challenge for them. What do you do as a coach and as somebody that helps them with their brand? And what advice would you have for somebody who's struggling in those areas?
I would say when it comes to writing, I think people need to understand that writing requires time and energy. I know when I work with my clients, I never promise them that, hey, I'm going to work with you and your book is going to be a best-selling book. And in some places, some of my clients landed best-selling books. But the thing is, what made a difference between them and the people who are hoping to get this done within 6 months' time is that they honed in on the process of writing. They were not focused on the outcome. They were not attached to a specific outcome, because I think when we're attached to specific outcomes, it could disempower us. It could just make us almost recalcitrant to, or even reluctant to continue the journey. So I would say if people are struggling with writing, just start small. Commit yourself to writing a single sentence, literally, or a paragraph each day or every other day. I'm also advocating for not spending an hour writing. Just because even for me, I'm currently in a doctoral program studying public health leadership, and we have tons of papers to write. And for me, I don't commit to an hour. Like if you have 15 minutes here and there, take those 15 minutes, jot things down. It doesn't have to be in full sentence form, because what the brain will do is that once you put those ideas down and you move away from your computer and you go walk and you go do something else, it's going to try to make connections between your thoughts, these differing thoughts. So by the time you get back to your screen, you'll be like, oh, I thought about this idea. I thought about this idea. Oh, you know what I mean? So it's just really build it as a routine. Gradually increase the amount of writing that you do, but also be mindful of your energy levels, because that plays a huge part in the quality of your writing. And try to schedule writing times that you're naturally where you're more naturally alert and creative. For me, it's the morning time. I'm more alert after I do a workout, and then I start writing. But it may not be the case for other people. And I want to also speak to, because I'm sure there are people in your audience who are parents as well. And that's why I even brought the 15 minutes, because their time may be further reduced. So I think that's something to take into account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of people too, it's not like writing is a lot of times it's not their quote full-time thing.
Yeah.
There's other things that they have, whether it's a full-time job, whether it's being a parent, whether it's whatever, that they have. Most of us don't have the luxury of writing being our full-time profession. Right. Obviously, there are people that do that, but actually, most people I know that have books, including people that have best-selling books, it's still not their full-time thing.
Exactly. That part
it's part of a larger thing. I have a book coming out, and it's not, but I am not looking at this book as, oh, that's going to replace my income. It's just one more piece of a larger puzzle that fits into what I'm doing. That makes perfect sense. And so tell us a little bit more about who comes to you for help. What do they look like? Who's the ideal person to reach out to you for the work that you do in that realm?
Oh, absolutely. The people who come to me are either fellow writers themselves, people who are novice, people who have never written in their lives before, people where English is their second language, it's not their first language. So those would be, because there are tiers of writing groups. So they would be considered novice writers. Businesses, all businesses, restaurants, nonprofit organizations, C-suite level executives as well have reached out to me, other coaches, other consultants. And I also, one of the things I've done for myself, and I think it's been a huge benefit, is not to pinpoint myself to one specific genre. I know some people do that, where they'll say, you know what, I'm really good at helping people writing nonfiction book, but I've done a lot in terms of manuscripts, even email writing, AI writing. And so the gamut of projects that I've received are huge. And and I keep it in as I keep it as a general genre on the website for a reason. I don't specify, because I want to attract people with different levels of projects. And then also it fuels my continuous learning, which is one of my top 5 strengths. I'm a learner at heart.
So I've got a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests, but before I ask you those, is there anything else about the work that you're doing or your experience that you'd like to share with the listener?
I think I want our listeners to just remember that consistency is key. And it's not just in writing, it's in life. Really taking the time to do these self-evaluation assessments. I do one every year, and I think that helps me to understand like what you did well and what are some areas that still need attention that may be an impediment to your progress and to your growth. And so I welcome people just to understand that consistent efforts add up and that you're always right where you're supposed to be. I know that when you go on Instagram, you go to other social media channels, you may trying to compare your beginning to someone else's ending, but trust me, that person is just showing you pictures. They're not showing you the process. And so hone in on your process. It will pay off. I know it did for me.
I would add to that, don't even compare your beginning to someone else's beginning, much less the middle or the end, because again, beginnings aren't even all the same. We don't all start from the same place on the race, if that makes sense. There are people that have advantages or disadvantages to the starting point, and I've even seen folks mess up there where I should be able to do this because this person did it. It's but y'all aren't even starting at the same place. So it's going to take a different set of skills, different set of experiences. And that's okay, but recognize it. Don't beat yourself up for the fact that you're in a different place, even at the beginning.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that.
So my brand is Inspired Stewardship, and I run things through that lens of stewardship. When you hear that word stewardship, I've discovered that it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So when you hear that word stewardship, what does it mean to you?
Ooh, okay. I need a moment for this one. Stewardship, because I've heard this word used interchangeably in so many different situations. But then I go home and I think to myself, but this was not stewardship. I would say stewardship to me is it's a responsible overseeing and protection of something considered worth caring for and preserving. I think it's about being accountable, not only for managing tangible resources, because that's how they use the word most of the time, but also for me, at least, as an aspiring leader, for nurturing growth and potential in others and the environment, because people cannot do their best work unless you create the environment for them to do. And so even now that I'm thinking about it and just going through, replaying the scenario, replaying all the questions that you've asked me thus far, I think personally, stewardship has been and continues to be a guiding principle in my professional endeavors in public health and my personal commitment to community service. And I think it ties very nicely with the notion of having a calling, which further influences how you approach work and how you approach every project and every relationship in your life. And so, yes, stewardship, if I had to assign an adjective to the word stewardship, I would say responsibility, being responsible for what you've been given, for the assignment. That's the word we've been using throughout the show, assignment that you've been given.
So this is my favorite question that I like to ask everybody. Imagine for a minute that I could invent this magic machine. And with this machine, I could take you from where you are today and transport you into the future, maybe 150, maybe 250 years. But through the power of this machine, you were able to look back and see your entire life and see all of the connections, all of the ripples, all of the impacts you've left behind. What impact do you hope you've left in the world?
Oof, I struggle with that. I struggle with answering that question because I have to detach myself from this whole idea of having an impact from the sense of I'm going to be in the spotlight. Sometimes there are many people out there who are making an impact and we don't even know their first and last names, right? And so I think if we're going to talk about the intangibles, things that the things that you can buy for free, I would say I want to be known for empowering communities and enhancing the well-being of individuals through education, advocacy, and leadership. And be mindful of the fact that I did not even give you a theme. Like I didn't say in behavioral health. I didn't say in XYZ. And I'm doing this on purpose with intent, because I just feel like since I've shared that I am a continuous learner, and I've shared that this is finding your calling is a cyclical process because it changes from season to season. I'm allowing the universe and I'm allowing God, since I'm a believer, to fine tune that theme. But that's what at the core, that's what I want to be remembered for. I want to leave a legacy where people can say my name and say, you know what, this woman contributed to a world where equitable access and education were not just ideals, but they were realities. And then to further inspire others to pursue and expand this work. Knowing that the ripple effects of such efforts, you will continue to improve lives far into the future, far into like when I'm gone. That's what I would want to be known for.
So what's on the roadmap?
Yeah.
What's coming next as you continue on this journey?
I think just like I have started since last year, just like we're doing right now, is really expanding my reach through speaking engagements, sharing my knowledge, my writing, and my role as a public health leader. What I would want in terms of the journey and what I pray for is that I'm continuously placed in the right places, the right spaces with the right people, where I can continue and actively work on collaborations that allow me to influence health policy and educational frameworks in public health. And then I think since AI is not going to leave anytime soon, if nothing else is going to continue to be amplified, I think now I've come to a place where I want to start exploring in innovative ways to integrate technology and new media to enhance public health messaging and engagement. And I think when I think of it, each step is really about deepening my impact, staying adaptable to change, and then always moving forward with purpose. That last part, moving forward with purpose, is key.
And you can find out more about Venchele over on her site at pathwaycoachwriting.com. Of course, I'll have a link to that over in the show notes as well. Venchele, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listener?
I think the other message that I would like to share with the listeners in summary of our session together is really to walk their path with purpose, and then also to block out the noise, because life will be filled with distractions. And I think the purpose of coming or walking into your calling is learning to differentiate the messaging that's coming from your inner voice, your inner intuition, versus what's coming from the naysayers and people who are not necessarily walking to their calling, or if nothing else, they are confirming that you're doing the right thing for yourself. And so that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.